What if you could build a website or landing page that looks and performs like it cost $10,000 or more, but you create it yourself in an hour for free, even with zero coding skills? Forget expensive designers and clunky DIY builders. The game has changed thanks to cutting-edge AI tools like Google's Firebase Studio. Now you can craft modern, fast, high-converting, SEO-optimized, and stunningly sleek websites without spending a dime. Yes, even the hosting is free. Imagine slashing your current website costs by replacing expensive tools like Typeform or dynamically updating your site to boost conversions for your existing business. Or what if you could launch a brand new profitable service building these professional sites for clients in a fraction of the time and undercutting old tech designers? This is how all websites will be made soon, and it's a massive opportunity. Today, we're showing you step-by-step how to plan your perfect site with AI, build it with award-winning design elements, get super fast free hosting, and replace costly third-party tools. We'll even redesign a real business website live, all in under 90 minutes using only these free AI tools. So if you're ready to build the website or landing page of your dreams, drastically cut costs, or launch a high-demand web design service of your own, keep watching. So to demonstrate this, we're going to set ourselves a challenge today, and that's to redesign an entire website of ATS Personal Training, which is a personal trainer here in Edinburgh. But, Gail, there are some twists to this challenge.
Okay.
There's some rules.
Let's check the site while we talk.
You need to do a full redesign using AI here. So this is an AI project.
Okay.
It has to look great, obviously. We want our site to look great. It needs to be high converting because it's a business. And it needs to use modern web technology as well. So it's going to be fast to load, mobile responsive, SEO optimized. It's not going to require any coding. And this is the kicker. You're not allowed to spend any money doing it.
That's the hard part.
How can you do this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, high converting. I'm not too worried because light yellow buttons on white background is not exactly CRO best practices.
Let's actually talk about this website. Give me your first impressions of it because, you know, this is a small business. The business owner is not a web designer. He's made it himself. Yeah. It's pretty normal that a local business website looks like this, right?
Yeah, I mean, I checked it out before the podcast, obviously. It's not like I'm discovering the website. I like the real photos. I don't like the super sharp edges, the button that touches the photo like that, the weird hovers. I think they do more than a small group personal training as well. They do one-on-one personal training, like the way they present their services. Not the best. Again, like a single line explaining what this is. Not great.
White padding and spacing around, and that's going to cause responsive issues on different devices.
I don't want to resize it because this is like made for the, I mean, I can just inspect it and then we can check the mobile. Like, yeah, you probably would want these to be like on top of each other, for example, on mobile. Like, yeah, it's like the photo, you see what happens on mobile. You get
it's kind of like fixed to the background, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's not so good. This is not very readable text, etc. Like the testimonials are not very readable. So there's work to be done. And I think AI can do better. Obviously,
the website's built in Wix, which is probably the most common platform, I would say, that small business owners go when they want to build something themselves, right?
I think they have a free plan as well, or it's not very expensive. But the point is, I think we can do better. I think we can do it cheaper. And most importantly, we can make it easier to edit the website when we want to add things and change things with this new tech. So let's just go and get going and see how it goes. It's a bit of a vibe here. I also have a time constraint here. I have about 1 hour, maybe 1 hour and a half, depending on how long we take. Realistically. But the first thing I like to do is picking the colors for a brand. I like to give that to AI because I think a site like Coolers makes it easier to pick colors than asking AI to do it, basically. And so what I do is I go on coolers.co.
Coolors.co, coolors.co.
Yeah, and I go on explore trending palettes. Basically, professional designers have put color palettes together and you can just steal them, which like, it's kind of better and it's very visual as well. So it's like, I knew it was doing a personal training site, so I picked this color palette here that is like, you know, near the top. I like the kind of like gunmetal gray type stuff for like the barbells, the metal. I saw they have some kind of rusty plates as well, etc. It's a little bit rough around the edges. And then the red is very sporty, very high energy, maybe a bit competitive, etc. So I was like, oh, this is a good color palette, right? So
the red also stands out massively. You could see having your buttons or whatever.
The CTAs, etc. Like, for CRO, it's pretty good. We can keep it minimalist. We have a bit of an off-white that's nice. Like, this is enough, basically. Like, I can just literally open the palette and then you can just copy the colors, right? So that's what I did. I took all these colors, I copied them, and I pasted them in Gemini. I said, like, first of all,
This is the 6-digit hex color code that you're copying here.
So
right?
I basically said, hey, I'm going to rebuild. Let's work on a PND with Canvas. Again, you have access to 2.5 Pro and the Canvas feature in a free version of Gemini. You might be limited in messages. So worst case, if you're talking a lot, you might need to like come back 3 or 4 hours later if you're running out of messages, but technically doable for free, right?
Someone use ChatGPT to accomplish the same.
But the point is, like, you have a smarter model with 2.5 Pro on a free version. On the free ChatGPT, you get a less smart model. So if you're going to for free, then I would pick Gemini, actually. That's why I kind of went that way.
Perfect.
And so I was like, hey, we're going to work on a PRD in Canvas. So Canvas is the text editor that goes on the right. So I can write things here if I want to. I can edit, etc. But also, as I chat with AI, it's going to update it for me and start preparing the specs for the website, basically.
You mentioned PRD. I presume that's the product requirements document, as it says on the screen right now. Yeah. Why are we making this before we build a website?
Well, a lot of people will just jump into the vibe coding tools, etc. And that would make for a better start of the podcast, let's be honest. Like, the retention is probably going to dip now because I'm on a text document. But the point is, you'll see that if you actually work on this PRD and you paste it into the tool we're going to use, which is Firebase Studio, which is also a free tool, it's going to one-shot a lot of things right away, and it's going to avoid us having to tinker with the code, ask a million revisions, etc. In the end, it's just faster, basically. If you actually want to do this in a more efficient way, just do it that way.
I think it kind of mimics the real world scenario where you've hired a web developer or web designer before they go and start designing and building stuff. They need to understand what it is you want. So this document is like a planning for the website, the same way you would plan any other piece of content you created before you just started writing or filming.
Exactly. And I was like, hey, be a technical PM for me and prepare the PRD. So it's like, it might translate
PM in this case mean product manager. Okay.
But the point is that it should be able to translate my plain English into more technical terms for the vibe coding tool to actually pick up the right technologies, etc. And so that's why it kind of like endorses that role. It's like, okay, cool. And then what it did is it was, okay, we need to work on all these things like the vision, the audience, the scope and key features, the design and branding, technical considerations, technologies, etc. And so like my next prompt was where I started giving information, right? So that's where a little bit of my personal experience came, but you can just steal it and just put it in your prompts if you want. So I said, I want to build a Next.js website, which is a pretty modern web technology that allows you to do fast websites, that allows you to also build apps in them. It's just like the way modern sites are built, basically.
And people don't need to know exactly what Next.js is. They should use it.
The point is that it's a framework that allows for dynamic apps, but you can also render in static HTML, which is very good for SEO, which like for a small business is quite important. So that's pretty much why you're using this. So you just say that.
By the way, how can people get access to these prompts? So we make them available?
Yeah, a lot of people asking for the prompts all the time in the podcast. So we're going to actually just put a link in the pinned comment if you're on YouTube, and you can click there. You will be asked to opt in, but you'll receive an email. You click on the link, and we'll just maintain a Notion page with like all the prompts that come along in the podcast, so that you can go and check them every time a new podcast comes out, and they should be added there. That makes it easy for us, makes it easy for you. These are like not insane prompts. They're like quite specific to the project, but there is some like elements that you should use, like what technology are you using? Then I explained the target audience, which I got from you actually, like basically people looking for powerlifting coaching and middle-aged people looking to get in shape. I gave my colors that I got from Coolers, and then I kind of gave it a very high-level vision of what I have for the website, which is sleek, minimalist, but modern, ample white space. Swiss-like design is basically this big typography type stuff, taking a lot of space, etc. That's what it means. Big headlines, big photos. I want to add the copy of the website that will be a one-pager. So we'll do a one-page website in this podcast because I just don't have time to build a whole website. And I want the copy to be in a PRD, so it's just easier for the vibe coding tool to pick that up and start writing, and then ask me questions to keep refining it, right? And so it did, and that's not the version we're looking at, but it just put a bunch of questions at the end. So then what I went to do is I asked it for fonts recommendation. It has enough information about the brand, the colors, etc., and what I want, the vibe, to give me font information. So it gave me like 5 fonts, I think. And then all you have to do is you can pick the names of the fonts, and you can go on fonts.google.com and you type them, and then you see the fonts, right? So I like this one because it was quite sporty, etc. One thing I did at the same time as well is I actually started searching for private gyms in very competitive areas. So I went for New York, for example, here, and looking at the sites that rank on top and how well they're doing, because
Why are you choosing New York here specifically?
Because the real estate is so expensive, then private gyms have to be extremely well optimized in conversions. Yeah, it's the most competitive type of space in the world, so they must have their shit together for their marketing, basically.
It's like New York or Los Angeles, just
Yeah, exactly.
because everything's so expensive and there's so many competitors, businesses that succeed and do well.
Yeah.
They really have to bring their A game, so it's a good place to get inspiration from.
So for copy, for the way they do their CTAs, like, this kind of hero section with a big image, like on the faded background, this kind of like condensed fonts in the headers, which are very similar to that font that was recommended by Gemini, basically. Like that just gave me inspiration. Like the big white space, they still use a lot of space to show the photos, Like that's the feeling I found on this site, but I found it on other sites as well. I think like this one was also quite similar. You see like kind of big photos, faded, etc. So it seems to be the template in this industry that you kind of want to go for. And again, I haven't worked in this industry, so I'm just going to look at people who have done it for a long time and consider it. So again, I took some of the font numbers, the font names it gave me, search for it, and I was like, yep, I like Bebas New, the sporty feeling for the headlines, and then Inter is good for the body. It was like just a more simple font, basically. And then I kind of went through a chat and asked it to do the questions. So it's like, it has a question on like the coaches of the gym, right? And so I just went on the website and then I found information here, for example, right? And I just Googled them as well, and I found some information. And I started just feeding that data. It's kind of like easier than just creating a document, because I just paste shit and answer the questions. And then eventually, like all that information ends up on the right,
AI
right?
sorts it out for you.
Yeah.
It organizes your thoughts, basically.
Yeah, and you can see it does the color palette for the light mode, the dark mode, the hero section, blah, blah, blah. It just starts describing everything based on the vibe and adding stuff that I would want. And you can see eventually we just kept talking for a while. There was some interesting prompts towards the end that I want to show people, but the idea is like I answered the questions it has for a while. And then what I did...
Just to confirm, though, the most important like human added points from the design perspective then would be like the colors and the fonts. Then pick that for you.
It can help you. Like for the fonts, it helped me. So it's like once you start having a direction for it, it understands the vibe and it will give you ideas. But to get started, I like to give the colors and what the goal is, etc. And just it gets the context, basically. I want to show a few prompts that are interesting that I kind of did at the end after answering all the questions, which is like, hey, think like a CRO expert now. Review the PRD and make suggestions, don't edit it yet, on things that you could improve to generate more leads for them. Make a detailed list of suggestions, each with a number attached, and I'll tell you which ones to implement in the PRD.
This is a common type of prompt that I've seen where you're essentially saying act as a, and then whatever, like high-end skilled professional. And then why does that work so well as a prompt?
It's just like taps into its training data about CRO, because it's like, I'm a CRO expert, what should I know? And it kind of like taps into best practices for CRO, basically.
Just to add a counterpoint to that, doesn't it already know those?
It does, but
CRO
it's kind
principles?
of like you're in a library and you can read all the books, or you can be like, hey, just take this lane and then actually take these books in this lane, and then that's it. Like that's pretty much the same. So it just focuses it on it. So it gave me a bunch of suggestions with like a number in front of each, like, put some micro copy like below the CTA, add reassurance benefits below the CTA, like no obligation, just expert advice, takes 60 seconds to book. Like it's pretty smart, actually. It's pretty good. These little suggestions. And so since I have numbers attached to them, like my only answer at the end was like, hey, implement 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. And then it just kind of like updated the PRD with all of these, the changes to the copy, the changes to the design, etc. And that just allows you to get a mini CRO audit for free, right?
And when you're going through this, are you like really thinking long and hard about which ones to implement? Or is it just like, yeah, those ones sound good, let's go with that?
It's good to take some time, but you're going to be able to tweak the site in the end, and it's like you kind of want to see it. So you wouldn't spend that much time as if like there was a real designer that is going to build the website, because it's just going to be fast to do changes, etc. So you kind of adapt to the new workflow, which is iterate fast. You kind of want to see it, because sometimes like the copy is too long, etc. You'll see, but it's not super obvious until you actually see it on the website. But anyway, I did the same thing for web designer hat. So I was like, hey, act as a web designer, look at the way each section that we've briefed together is described, and is there a better way to do this, basically, and just kind of updated the PRD. And I did the same for copywriter. So I was like, okay, you're a CRO-based copywriter, make me suggestions on how to edit the copy to make it more authentic, convert better, etc. And I just took sections of the copy and then just gave me changes that it could do with numbers. And then I gave it the numbers that I wanted to implement. I put all in caps here because I just copy-pasted from the prompt, actually. And then I asked for a dark mode because I'm a nerd and I like dark mode.
It's interesting, though, because I remember when we were redesigning our website a few years back with like a human designer together, and adding in dark mode just to the design, that's not even building it, was going to take like another day or so of work. And here it's a trivial, you add that as like a one-liner and it just does it.
And you will see like with one prompt, we'll have a dark mode built in the website already. And because it has the color palette that it can just invert the colors, etc., it just does it. So anyway, that's kind of a chat that took me about 20 minutes maybe to go through. And then you have this beautiful document that gives a lot of information. We're missing one last thing though for the branding, and that is the logo. And so logo, I mean, Google just released a new image model, but it's not easily accessible. So I use ChatGPT. And because we have this big PRD document now.
It's just stock ChatGPT, not the paid one, right?
You can do it for free. The free accounts can generate images. So we're good. And then I'd say, this is the PRD for the new site. Walk me through the process of creating a new logo. And I just read the whole thing.
And you just copy pasted the whole thing in there. And that was your entire prompt.
That was it. And then it just kind of like went through it, came up with ideas. And then I was like, okay, do the mockups. And it just gave me 3 ideas for logos, which I think are quite...
Which look pretty good, pretty modern. Especially if you bring up the current one, they look much more like sharp and clean compared to
it doesn't look like it's made in Microsoft Paint. I picked this one. It had a bit of a Japanese feel to it. I liked it. And I was like, give it to me on a transparent background. And bam, I just had a logo and I could save it. And then all I had to do is crop it, right? Because it gives you a lot of space above and below. So I took it in Pixelmator and I just cropped it.
Because in your PRD, you had information about fonts now. Is that pulling the same information when it's generating the fonts?
It's not perfect, but it's close enough. Because it's diffusion models, it doesn't really use fonts, but it knows what the font looks like. And so it does something close enough. Again, if you were nitpicking, this is like MVP, right? It's like if you really wanted a high-end brand, you probably wouldn't build it that way.
Well, what do you mean by MVP then? Because not everyone knows that.
Minimum
that's like a
viable
basketball
product
term or something.
No, it's
okay.
It's just like you're building something that is going to allow you to get clients. People are not going to be like, oh my God, it's not exactly the same font in the logo. I'm not buying from these personal trainers. It's probably not happening. So it doesn't matter, basically. We're focusing on the important stuff. So anyway, now we pretty much have everything to get started. So finally, we can get started with actually generating a website. And so it takes about 10 minutes, 15 minutes to generate a website. And I don't want everyone to stare. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the PRD and we're going to launch the creation on Firebase Studio, which is Google's free vibe coding tool. It's free with no limits, right? I have spammed it for multiple entire days and never got asked to pay for anything, basically. So it's pretty good.
You need to sign up for an account, but you use your Google account, and that's
pretty much. Anyway, you get 3 projects. You need to sign up to like some free upgrade, and then you get 10, basically. But the point is, like here, I'm just gonna paste what I got in Gemini, which is big, I get it, but it will take it. And I'm gonna launch it. And to show you it's a pretty good vibe coding tool, I'm not just gonna launch it on Firebase, I'm also gonna launch it on V0, which is a paid tool from Vercel. And I'm going to launch it on Lovable. And we're just gonna compare what we get, right? And so while this is going...
These are competitors to Fire Studio, or like just other tools that do the exact same thing?
Same category of tools, I would say. Kind of like web-based vibe coding, you chat, it builds. But I would say that Lovable is a terrible place to build that kind of website because they build sites in a different technology that is not good for SEO. It's not easy to crawl for Google. I just wanted to compare the design, but even if it was better, I would not use it, actually.
How much are these tools?
About $20 a month. For both of them. V0 actually charge per token now, so you get $20 of credits, and that's it.
Got it.
We're going to jump in to go a little bit faster. We're still going to check what they generate, but, to speed things up, I've done it already. So you can see this is exactly the same document I pasted. And then what I did is like the first generation actually had an error, and there was just a pop-up on like fix the error. And then that's all I did. I did nothing else. And so we can look at what we got.
I just want to zoom in on that, actually, because that's, I think, what makes this quite like beginner friendly is when it does have a problem, there's just a big red button that says fix the problem. You click
most of the time it
works.
Not all the time, but most of the time it works.
Some other tools, they'll spit out a bunch of code and like give you complex things to do, and it's a bit more intimidating for some people.
So anyway, I'm very happy for the first version because we have a dark mode. And it actually
the most important thing, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a little bit of issues. So for example, you can see like the logo is like touching the border, for example. There should be a bit of padding here. And it has placeholder for images. So you have to imagine an image in the background, right? It's very similar to what we saw earlier, except I think the headline is a bit big maybe. Yep. But you can click, and if you click on the button, you actually get the pop-up with like, you can fill your lead form and you can keep going.
So this multi-step lead form that you're going through right now, that's been generated by Firebase. By
AI.
Completely. Wow. You would pay like $50 a month for these types of tools.
For this kind of tools, it costs $50. I will build a pop-up as well after. But the point is, obviously, it's not connected to anything, but you can connect it to something like NA10 that you self-host. I can just say like, this is my N8N webhook. I will just connect to it. And I've tested, I connected N8N to a chatbot, to these kind of forms, etc., and receive the data.
Or for like a more simpler approach, you can literally just have it email you with the information.
It's not so simple, actually, because it doesn't have an email server. No.
So like, because at N8N, it's a bit complicated for beginners. So maybe
you
like
could do
they
make.com,
use like
you could do Zapier. And then just start an automation with a webhook. I'm pretty sure you can make a free account on make.com and run on the free account for your contact form, for example, and that would probably be enough.
Especially if you're getting, one or two leads a day, or if it's a small business. Yeah.
Exactly. So technically you can do this for free. You do need to connect it to a webhook though. You just go in the chat, you put the URL given to you by Make, and it will do it. So that's pretty much it. But let's look at the rest of the site. So there's kind of like your goal, like kind of like who we are. And then here you would put some kind of big photo here. And we'll see how to put photos later. Here is the services. So again, this is like one-on-one coaching and small group personal coaching. And they tell you like the benefits, etc. And then if you click on this, they still send you to the lead. They had a special offer that I found on their website on some other pages. So it's actually in a PRD where you have like a £65 unlimited 2 weeks access for newcomers. And then after that, that's the cost. And then you have the coaches. So I think it looks a lot better now. Like you can put a big photo of them here. They have a little badges that explain like what they focus on. It shows their degrees separately. I think I like the kind of like hierarchy of like the name in big. It's decent.
It looks like, it's hard to describe like if you're listening to the audio, but it just feels very like kind of crisp and nice. And there's little things like shadows underneath those boxes there that you didn't have in the original version. You use your imagination to put some photos where those image
we'll put one or two after.
It would look very nice.
I'll show how to put the photos after, because obviously how to edit the copy without asking AI and how to put the photos, I think is quite important. Let's start crawling before we walk. So you put a nice little gallery here with some captions as well, so people can just see what the gym looks like. Talk about the community, maybe ask for some revisions, but that's fine. Some testimonials, again, a little bit basic, the testimonials. Maybe we can do better with some CTA. And at the end, you just have some kind of big CTA. You have the address here, and it's not in the footer. Like it's, not my favorite in terms of how
it's
the address
also
is
in the
here
footer as well. Yeah.
So it's like there's some stuff that needs to be refined, right? It's not perfect, but that's the fair first shot, right? So before we actually go and check the result of the tools that we actually got, one thing that I like to do is, because the prompt is quite complicated, I like to recopy it and ask it to study the prompt a second time and then kind of make sure it implemented everything, because it's just a lot for it to do. So what we're going to do is I'll be like, meticulously study the prompt again, then review the project, find what has been done, has been forgotten or not implemented properly, and fix it. And then I'll just
You're basically asking AI to check its work here.
Pretty much. And I'm just going to paste. We're going to launch it. And that's pretty much the interface, right? You kind of like chat on the right and it just does things. So now it's going to do things for like a minute or two. So we get to review what happened on our first prompt on the other ones. It does a plan before it creates the app. So actually I need to create that button. It's fine. We'll go back to it later. But V0 finished because V0, which is a paid app, had an application error, but you can see that even the paid apps do have errors. It's quite frequent when you launch an app, but you just have this button fix and it's just going to do it.
You almost wonder why they don't just fix it automatically and they make you click that button.
Lovable did finish the website. Remember, I don't like the tech behind Lovable, but it's a pretty good website as well, I would say. It looks pretty...
It's nice. The color is just like, it's okay.
I can't close the pop-up. I cannot. So that's the kind of bugs that happen. But you could talk with it. And I cannot close the pop-up literally. So I'm just going to refresh. I think it's decent. But you can see how close the results are from what we got from the free app, right? Like, it's not that far. I would argue this is worse, actually, here.
I don't think it's done such a good job on using the color palette here.
I don't like that.
It still looks like a very modern site.
Yeah, I don't like that it kind of made tabs for these sections of like our trainers, our facility, our community. I like the way these tabs look, but I don't think it makes sense. I think you should see all of them. Real people, real results, very similar as well. And then get your free evaluation. Not bad, but again, bad for SEO. So if you were actually trying to do this for SEO, it's good for an app, it's not so good for a website. And you can see V0 failed again after I asked it to fix the code. So we'll see how far it goes. And meanwhile, Firebase is actually writing the code. But anyway, we're going to work on this one because we're pretty much at the same point, right? So now what I want to do is I want to show you the workflows. And I just showed you one. By the way, it did all the revisions I asked. So it tweaked the website and it told me what it fixed. It fixed the favicon. I didn't do much. No, I did some color palette adjustment. It fixed some of the model stuff. I don't see much changes, but it revised its prompt, basically. Anyway, let's talk about the actual vibe coding here. Is there something you'd like to change on the website that you're seeing right now?
I mean, the images for sure.
We'll do that after. Okay, let's do the margin, for example. So like when you see some arrows on the side, you can actually click on this little button here that allows you to select elements on the canvas, and then you can write something. So for example, I can say this nav has no padding left, right, fix it. So I can just kind of see the issues with the website and then tell the chatbot to go and fix it. And that's kind of like one of the main workflows that you're going to follow. That's an easy one. I'm going to show you some more advanced ones in a second.
It's almost like if you're working with a designer in your office, you just like point to the screen and say, hey, change that, you know.
Yeah, I want to show, by the way, while this is working, that V0 finally finished the website. V0 does make SEO-friendly websites. And it's not bad, but I don't know where that green background color comes from because it wasn't in a color palette. But I think this is pretty good. For example, the grouped stuff. This is
the color is a bit trippy. It looks like I've got, I don't know, 3D glasses from the 90s on or something like that. Yeah.
All of the point of running it on V0 and Lovable was to show that these paid tools are not miles ahead of the free one that we're using and that you're not really losing at the trade. So I'm going to drop V0 and Lovable now. It was just to show you that, right? But anyway, the one thing that is a little bit annoying with Firebase is that sometimes it's a little bit slow. You see, it took some time to actually get to my task, but normally it should be doing it properly now. So you can see that it actually didn't fix my error here, which happens as well when you're vibe coding. So we're doing the real thing here. So one thing that I'm going to do, and you won't be able to see my screen, but I'm going to take a screenshot. And I'm going to just be able to annotate the screenshot with an arrow, but you'll see it when I upload it. And I'll write, still no padding. So I've done my screenshot and I can drag it. And you can see I basically made a screenshot with 2 arrows pointing to the padding on the left and right. And that says still no padding, right? And I'll just be like, it's not fixed. Look into the issue, fix it. That's one way to work with the vibe coding tool, which is fine. But it's not necessarily easy to know how to make the design look better yourself. Like I'm not a designer myself. I don't find it particularly easy to come up with smart ideas to make the whole thing better. So what I've done is, and if you've watched our previous podcast, is I went on TypingMind and I've created an agent that is a design feedback bot that creates tasks for the vibe coder that allows me to get good ideas on the design, basically. And so I'll show the prompt, but it will be in the link in the description and in the pinned comment. But basically, I tell you, it's a elite brand design strategist, top 1% of human experts. So we're like peak role prompting for this. And primary objective is to ensure UI UX development. It doesn't only perfectly align with the brand vision, but it's world-class design quality and it maximizes profitability. So we still have this kind of like CRO angle in mind. And he will first propose the changes to the CEO for review, which is me. It will be given a screenshot, make the list of changes, and then it's going to write a technical description for the AI coder to tell it what to do and how to change with technical words. So what I suggest is we just do it instead of talking about it. So let's see if it fixed. Yeah, I did actually fix my padding. You can see there's a bit of padding on the left and right now. It's not touching. Okay, nice. So eventually that worked. But let's say now I'm like, okay, how do I make this section better? So I'm going to take a screenshot again. Actually, before I do the screenshot, we're going to go on TypingMind. We're going to create a new chat. 2.5 Pro.
By the way, do you need to use the TypingMind interface for this? Or
No, you could paste the prompt on the free Gemini. I'm just lazy to move it. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to copy my PRD and give it to that chatbot, right? So I'll be like, we work on this brand, study the PRD, and tell me ready when ready. And I'll be like, PRD, paste, send, right? And then I'm going to prepare my first prompt already. So I'm going to grab my first screenshot. I'll be like, this is the hero section. How do we make it better? So normally it should have replied to me. Oh, it's still thinking. But I can queue it on TypingMind. That's a good thing. So I can click queue and it's just going to wait till it's done replying. And then boom, it's just sent, basically. So now what it's going to do is it's going to make a list of proposed changes. Be like, oh, it's not so good. You can do this, you can do that. And here's a list of tasks to give to your AI chatbot that codes the website if you want to actually achieve that. And what is good is it breaks it down in tasks. So it's like smaller chunks of work because it's not necessarily best practice to give it too much. I mean, you see with the PRD, I'm kind of pushing it already, but it kind of works. But then after that, it's good to essentially zoom into each section of the website. So we're going to do the hero section. I'm not going to do all of them on the podcast, but the point is you go through each of these sections, you upload a screenshot, you go back and forth with your chatbot, and you kind of refine it. A little bit like an image starts blurry with AI, it kind of gets more precise as it goes. That's kind of the workflow.
Just to be clear, the agent that you're interacting with has been told to output specific task instruction. So that's what you're expecting to get here.
Yeah, you can see. So first I have the summary. So, I mean, in this case, it's like put a hero image. We'll do that after. That's fine. But it's like refine the hero typography for readability and impact, for example. It's like, the typography is used properly, but the latest spacing is not so good. The line height, not so good, blah, blah, blah. And it picks, because it has the color palette, etc. in a PRD, you can say, hey, let's change the color. Let's do this. Let's do that. And it essentially just makes a plan. And so I'm not going to do the first task because the first task is changing the hero image and it cannot do that. But we're going to do the second one, which is correct and refine the hero section text color for light mode, align with the next image, screen background, etc. So what I can do is, and you can see it was pretty precise because it actually picked each section of the text and gave it the exact color it wants and also the exact CSS class it wants to use.
If anyone runs like a ticket system or task management system, like the level of detail that it's giving here is quite extreme. So it is very, very, very precise in what it's prescribing here.
So we're going to paste it, and normally it should start editing the hero section and particularly these two pieces of text, basically. And so that's what this prompt does. But again, if I keep going, it's like, okay, there's more typography tasks here for the H1 element. There is the CTA as well that it thinks can be more visually appealing by changing some color, changing some hover states as well, so that it has some feedback when you hover it. Like it is refining the design. That's kind of like my main process for refining the design is having this chatbot here. And then if I disagree with it, I'll tell it. I'll be like, hey, I don't like this. I think it should be more like this. And it's going to adapt the tasks. And after that, I run it. And essentially, yeah, you can see it's a little bit tighter. Like you can see the space between the letters is a little bit less than it was. I would argue that this headline is too long. So we're going to learn how to edit it in a bit. If you don't like any of the changes, by the way, you can always revert back as well. There's a restore button here. So I could click on restore. And what's going to happen is it's going to bring back the previous version of this. And then I can restore back to where we were. And so if you run all these tasks, essentially that's going to change your design quite a bit. So let's do the CTA one because I want to see some real stuff done, actually, because this wasn't super obvious. I'm going to paste it. And that's a lot of my workflow for refining that website. Now, we can also add features if you want, right? So remember they had an exit pop-up. So maybe we can do an exit pop-up after that. And after that, I think we're going to look at how we're going to actually be able to edit the copy, because I think some of it is too long, and add the images in. If we can do these two things, I think we'll be pretty happy already. So let's see what happens here. All right, so you can see it's starting to work. So it took the task and it broke it down itself. And it makes a small plan. You can see the CTA is a little bit different now. It has a hover state, etc., basically. So again, small refinements, but you get 10 tasks per section, and eventually your site becomes a lot tighter.
Do you have to go through and like copy paste the tasks one by one, or can you just say, hey, do all these things?
You should do it one by one, actually. That's kind of like usually what I do is just I run this, I'll paste, and I'll just do something else at the same time. I might work on something else and just kind of goes. And at the end, once you're actually done with all your refinement, I'll take another screenshot. I'll be like, is this what you envisioned? Are you happy with this? Or should we do further changes? And it might recommend to be like, actually, that's not how I saw it. I might want it to be different. Another thing that you can say is like, well, this is the final result, but I don't like it very much. I think it should be more like this, etc. And you give your opinion, and it's going to basically self-correct. But that's really the workflow that we would go through this. I'm not going to go through the whole site right now. It would take a long time. I think the base is decent, though, so we can start on that. So that's the first vibing thing. The second vibing thing I want to show you is that you can actually import elements from external websites into this. So there's a website called 21st.dev that has a bunch of elements that you can bring. So, these kind of little avatar things where you see the users, etc. You can see scrolling testimonials. You can implement even chatbots and connect these to an A10, for example. And I think we're going to do this one. We're going to try to implement a chatbot that we would connect to an A10 later on this. So the way it works is you basically pick an element.
Can I just ask, what technology is this using here on 21st.dev? Like, what is this for?
It's React, which is essentially like the Next.js is kind of like is compatible with it, basically.
So is this why you chose Next.js?
It's the modern web design framework, and that gives you access to these things, basically.
This is completely free, this website?
Yeah, it's free as well. We're not paying. You see, I'm not even logged in.
Okay.
And so you click on
people just go and share their code for cool stuff.
There's like contests. Cool, there's like cash prizes, and every week there's a cash prize for the best elements. Nice. People submit stuff, people vote, and then the best stuff kind of ends up in a library. So let's see. Like the way it works is you select one of these elements, you click on copy prompt. It's made for AI, actually. And here, if you have one of these other editors, like Lovable or something, you can have that. But in this case, it's not in the list, Firebase Studio, so I'm going to select for most case editors. And I'll just put an additional context with it, which is implement this chatbot on the page, but brand it for the company. Normally, the first prompt that you do just implements the tech, but doesn't necessarily put the chatbot on the page. So don't be shocked if it doesn't work. And so you essentially have this huge piece of text that you've
So
pasted
it's
here.
copied most of the code then that the original developers created, as well as implementation instructions here.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
So in principle, it's going to start editing my project and add stuff there, basically. We're going to let it run and see how it goes. Hopefully it doesn't break. All right, so you can see it added the chat actually to my thing. And now if I click here, it branded it, and I actually have a chat here. I can remove the placeholders later. I can be like, hey, remove the placeholders, connect it to my hook on N8N, etc. But you can see we implemented essentially what we saw on this website, but it was black, but it branded it for my website. Obviously, there's some placeholders. It's not connected to a chatbot now. I would need to. But the point is that the whole interface is here, and you just need to connect a webhook. And I've done that on some chats. I've connected an N8N. So the automation would look something like that. You would have a webhook that comes in. You would have a URL for that webhook. Actually, it would be a post
Can you
webhook.
just explain what a webhook is for those who don't know?
It's basically a URL that you send your data to that sends data back. That's pretty much what it is. That would connect to an AI agent. You would just give it a prompt. So in this case, I would put define below. I would pass the data into the prompt. The chatbot would answer and would send the answer back to the webhook that would then display on the front end here. You could build your custom sales, FAQ type support agent on your website. But you didn't have to build any of the UI, and you didn't have to even prompt for it. You can just take it from another website.
It's amazing you can do all this high-end stuff now with zero actual coding.
Yeah. And that's kind of the power of tapping into these new techs that it's not WordPress, it's not all of that. WordPress feels old now. It's not so great. Imagine making a form like this on WordPress, how difficult it would be.
You'd need paid tools for that.
You'd pay at least $100, $200 per year for a plugin that can do this, right? And here I can fully customize it. I can make custom paths. I can do all of that. It all works if we want to. Now, there's two things that we still haven't addressed is how do I change the copy without talking to AI? And how do I add my images, right? Let's talk about these two things because I think otherwise it's not really a website. So that's why you kind of go away from the vibe coding and you're going to jump into the real code editor built in Firebase Studio. And why I like this tool so much is because you actually get a real code editor in here. And now it's going to be a little bit scary. It's going to load a bunch of stuff. But the point is that it levels up with you if you want to actually do the more advanced things. So let it open everything. It's going to open my website on the right so I can still see what's going on. But on the left, I'm going to have my file structure. And that's where I'm going to be able to upload images. That's where maybe you see the limits of not having a CMS, because it would be easy on WordPress to drag and drop your images. Here it's going to be a little bit more hacky. What you need to do is you need to make a folder called public. So I clicked on this.
Why call it public?
It's just the way the framework works. You just call it public. So now we have a folder, and then inside this folder, I'm going to create a folder called images.
They have to be called public and images. Or
images, not necessarily public, has to be public though.
Okay.
And then I have some of these photos from that gym on my desktop. So I'm going to drag and drop them. You won't see that, but you'll see them when I drop them. So I'm going to images and I'm dropping. And normally you can see now it's uploaded my images, right? So I have them on my file structure now. And let's say, what kind of image can we take for the hero? I have one called hero. Let's see if we can put this image into the hero. So then I'm going to copy the relative path. I'm going to right click, copy the path to that image. And then you could ask the chatbot to change it. You could do that. But I'm not going to do that because might as well just learn something new in this podcast, right? That's going to be the opportunity to show you how to edit your files and your copy. If you go in source, then you can see you have components and app. If you go in components and layout, in section, you will see that you have essentially the different sections of your page, right? You have the hero section, the story and philosophy, the contact, etc. So if I go in hero section, I'm going to make it a bit bigger because it's a bit hard to edit. Now you can see the code. And the code is not that scary, right? We're talking 40 lines. Not too bad because it's broken it down.
I think some people would still find this intimidating, but it does have all of the actual text that's on the screen, so you can kind of figure out where you are just based on that.
So let's talk about editing the copy first. So let's say we want to change become your strongest self, get your free expert. Let's say we want to remove get your free expert blueprint to pick strengths, for example. I could just remove these two here. You can see the text is here, right? Get your free blueprint, blah, blah, blah. And then just do that. And then I would press Command S to save. And if I refresh, you can see now my H1 has been edited, right? That's the way. And if I want to change the copy, if I want to put a smiley at the end, I can put a smile at the end. I can save. And then I can just refresh. And normally I have a smiley, right?
And if you're still not confident with that, you can click on the Gemini
And
tab
ask it
at
to
the
do it.
right, and just tell it in
You could
plain
go back to the
English
vibe
what to do.
coding, select the section like I did it earlier, and say, hey, change this text to this text, and it will do it for you if you don't want. But might as well.
You know, to be fair to our WordPress friends, this is a downgrade, and you can't just like click on the text on the screen and like WYSIWYG edit it.
It is a little bit of a downgrade, but in exchange, you get a fast site for free that you can edit with words. So which one do you pick?
Yeah.
Anyway, remember I copy-pasted.
I feel like the WYSIWYG stuff will probably come to this at some point in the future.
There is a little bit of it in Lovable, actually. If we go back to Lovable, I think you click on Edit. I think you can click on the button and see you have a little bit of controls, actually.
Yeah, that's much more.
So hopefully that comes to Firebase, but you asked me to do it for free. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And this is quite a new tool as well, Firebase Studio.
This is like a month old. It was terrible when they released it, but now it's pretty good, actually. We should have said that earlier. Anyway, you can see I have an image tag here. And so I remember I pasted my image folder. And so like I do that, except this is not going to be very intuitive as well. I need to remove the public in front of the slash. It needs to be /images/hero.webp. And if I save this in principle, that should put that image as my hero. Yep, here we go. And that's how you put images on your website. Again, you could ask Gemini, if you give it the URL, you could go in the Gemini here and be like, hey, put this into the hero section. It would do it for me. Mm-hmm. So just so...
This is, just to be clear, this is already like responsive. I saw you kind of changing the screen size there.
Yeah, you can see.
This works on mobile already.
Yeah, we're fine. Look, nothing's broken. No, there's one thing that's broken. You can see something's pulling on the right, which is fine. It happens. Yeah, this button. So again, what I would do is I would go back to my vibe coding mode, which is like the switch to prototyper. I would select that button. I'd be like, this breaks on mobile, make it be on 2 lines, for example. And that would be fixing. I'm not going to do it now. It's not super interesting for the podcast. That's kind of the point. Now, there's a few things I still want to talk about because, okay, we have a website on this tool, but like, how do we have this website live, right? How does it go on the internet and how can people access it? Okay, so the way you do that, and I need to do it for free hosting as well for life. So we're going to use this source control tab here, and we're going to be connecting this to GitHub. GitHub is this website. I actually already uploaded it, but we're going to show you how to do that. It's basically a code repository online that allows you to upload your code for your website, and then the hosting is going to pull from it after. And so that's what we're connecting to.
So just to be clear, GitHub and hosting are like 2 separate things.
Yeah. GitHub is just going to be the place where you walk and then you'd save. It's your save button. And then the hosting is going to take the saves that you make and make them live.
And you're getting free hosting with this as well?
Yes.
Wow. How?
We're going to get there. Let me commit my code.
That got my attention.
So what you do is you go into this source control, and then you click on the little cloud here. And the little cloud is going to ask you if you want to sign into GitHub. You should create an account here. So you click allow. And then it's going to give you a code that you should keep. So click and continue to GitHub. It's going to allow me to connect this. And actually, if I go back, I should see it here. So E995-9460. Continue. It's going to connect. And we're connected. So now if I go back, I should be able to push it to GitHub. And it says, publish to GitHub private repository. You can see this little window here. Now that I'm connected, I can do that. So it's going private. Nobody else can see it. If you make it public, anyone could access your data. So don't do that. Publish it private. And then you give it a name. So I'll call it ATS podcast pod demo. Let's call it this. I'm going to publish to GitHub private repository. And now it's actually uploading my files to GitHub. You can see successfully published to GitHub. So now if I go to GitHub itself, I'm actually going to go here and I'm going to go into repositories. You can see that normally we have ATS pod demo and we have all the files from our website. After that, you can keep working on your site and pushing new updates. The point is now it is connected to this repository, so I can connect it to a free hosting account. And the free hosting account we're going to use is Vercel, and it's the guys who invented Next.js. Before we actually go into deploying it, let's go into their main website and look at the pricing, because you were asking me how do you get free hosting, right? And you can see that they have a hobby plan that is actually free. It doesn't cost anything. And that hobby plan actually includes 100 GB of data transfer per month, which is like not a lot, but it's enough.
That's quite a lot for a free plan.
For a small
especially if you're running a small business, yeah.
Yeah, it has like 1 million.
You would pay easily $20 a month or something for a similar package on WordPress hosting.
I mean, let's check. Let's go on WP Engine and check how much 100 gigs would cost, for example. So a lot of people use WP Engine, right? Let's look at monthly. And we're in GBP, but let's put it in USD, right? how much you get. You get 75, you get 150 gigs. So you get like 50% more for $47 per month. Let's see, smaller plan. Yeah, this is less data. This is 75 gigs. This costs $24 per month. So we're talking like $300+ per year of free hosting. So it's like, there is overages after that, but for a small gym, like it's probably enough, right? So if you were selling this as a service, you could potentially charge for it and not pay anything. So once you have an account, you go in your projects, and you can see I have a few tests, and you click add new project. And here you can connect your GitHub account, which I already have connected. And then you see your repositories basically. So you can see the one we just created 2 minutes ago. And I can just click on import. And what it's going to do is it's just going to deploy it. So I don't really need to change anything in there. I just click on deploy. And obviously, there's not going to be a domain name attached to this, but it's going to be hosted, and I could point my domain to it the same way I would do with a normal hosting. So now it's taking the data from GitHub, downloading it to their servers. It has a CDN built in as well, like a pretty good one, and it's going to basically put that website online. Obviously, that website is not finished. There are some images missing, and I could tweak it. I could vibe it a bit more. Like it would probably take 2-3 hours in reality to finish that website, but it's not too long. And so when we're done, in a few seconds, hopefully, you can see it's creating optimized production build right now. You can see all the logs happening. There is some errors as well, so that's quite interesting. Sometimes you get some errors of stuff that's outdated, and that's because the LLMs are using a bit outdated technology sometimes, but that's okay. You can grab these logs, you can copy them and paste them back into Firebase Studio, and then essentially be like, fix it for me. And then what it's going to do as well is when you push any update to GitHub, Vercel is going to automatically grab this update and push it live. So you can kind of have this circle where you see things, and that's it, we're live actually. So if I continue to my dashboard, I could add a domain here. So like you can see I have a domain here. You see this is a real URL, and our site is live basically. It didn't take the image for some reason, so I would need to troubleshoot that. But the point is our chat is live, everything's live. If I kept tweaking it and pushing updates, that would be my website. You can see there's some vibing to do still on the image size, etc. Like it would need to be fixed. But we're probably like, let's be honest, like 2-3 more hours of work on this website to upload all the images, tweak the copy a bit, like this text is a bit light, etc. But you would have a free website built for free. We didn't spend any money, hosted, and it should be pretty fast. Let's just run the speed test, okay? Just to see how good we're doing here. Obviously, we're missing some images, so we're cheating a little bit.
What speed test is this you're running here?
I'm using Lighthouse, so it's the one that's built into Chrome, actually, so it's the Google stuff.
Okay.
It's just going to run a speed test, etc. So that's the process, basically. That's how you build a website in an afternoon. And you build it without spending a dime, and you will never spend a dime as long as the traffic is not too high, obviously. Any questions? Anything that you want to say on this?
I just want to say there seems to be like a pretty crazy financial arbitrage opportunity right now. Is this because this technology is like, a couple months old or whatever, but web designers are still charging, $2, $3, $4, $5, even $10,000 to the small businesses in the US to build these types of sites. And even then, the ones that they're building are nowhere near as good as this and don't have all these fancy chatbots or JS technology with these cool elements and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's quite an interesting market at the moment for this kind of application.
I agree. And it's also like if you want to launch a startup quickly, again, you came up with like some cool AI agent, you want to make a quick site to promote it or whatever, you can go fast. Also, I like the idea, big brands, they do these micro sites for campaigns, like they make a site for the carnival or they make a site for a special promo or something. And that's something small businesses could not do before because obviously it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, etc. But now in like half a day or something, you can push something that's decent. Obviously, again, we have placeholder images, etc. But you can see it's not so hard to switch the images, right? It wouldn't have taken so much time. It would have made for a very boring podcast, though, so that's why we didn't do it. But you can see the performance came back. We're at 97 performance, 100% SEO. We have a bit of accessibility issues. A lot of sites do, actually. But again, like everything's green on the speed. It's a 1 second.
Yeah, I mean, it's, for the first version of it, this is amazing. Really,
and what you can do as well is you can take these issues, and actually some of this is like due to my extensions. You can see Chrome extension. That's me slowing it up with some extensions I have installed, basically. Okay. So you should run this on incognito, but let's say, like, for example, minify CSS, like I could copy this into Firebase. So I could copy this and go back to my Firebase and I go back to like my vibe mode. If I'm afraid of the code, I don't want to touch it anymore. I go back and I could just literally paste the errors that I get from any kind of reports, whether that's deploying it, whether that's the site speed, etc. I could paste that and I could be like, got this error in Lighthouse, fix it, please. And I don't know if it can, but we'll see. But the point is you can just give it back the errors. I will just work on them and you get better results. And so that's kind of...
You really can treat this just like a web designer who's sitting next to you. And just, you know, it's very like organic, natural language that you're interacting with, and it's just doing the things you want.
It's actually telling me it's my fault. It's telling me. It's like, actually, there's nothing to do. You actually messed it up with your extensions. So again, I said like some of this could be my fault. I didn't really look. But the point is, you can see all the changes we made in the code are now live on my vibe coding mode, basically. Like the images are here, all of that is here. I would need to upload the new version. I don't know what the images didn't upload, but I would need to check that. But that's pretty much the workflow if you want a free website.
Is this how all websites are going to be designed, in the coming years or months? Because it seems like this is going to take off massively quite soon.
It's still a bit of a skill. Like you see, like there's still a lot of stuff that has to be figured out. And again, when we go into the details, you might just like be blocked on some stupid little detail or something. And that happens. Let's not bullshit people on that. That's how it works. But yeah, I say it's totally worth learning. So many use cases for that, so much arbitrage. But I think a lot of the web design industry is old people now. I'm sorry, but they will not change that fast. So you have an opportunity to compete with your local web designers or things like that. Imagine making a prototype to someone 12 hours after you've talked to them and you send them, like not finished, like let's say this, like be like, hey, I had something like this in mind. Obviously it's not finished, it's rough around the edges, but what do you think? What are your chances of winning the business against?
I'm thinking as well, like you're on a Zoom call with someone getting their feedback, and then your AI just reads the transcript of that and feeds it into Firebase Studio, and then like even on the call itself, you could maybe do the updates for them.
To fix stuff, yes.
At least.
To fix stuff, yes, you can. To build a full website, maybe not. I wouldn't go that far. But yeah, it's a lot of opportunities. That's something that I wanted to solve this year, which is like, we need to launch new things, right? This is our problem right now. How do we launch new things quickly? Not perfectly. This won't be perfect. This will still be a notch under really good designers for sure. But it's kind of like AI content. It's like you can take it pretty far if you figure out the flow. That's the flow I have right now there. And then we're going to use that for several projects.
So a couple questions then. If we wanted to add some kind of e-commerce element or, book a session or even like a WordPress blog, can we do it in here or do we have to like build a separate Shopify or
Yeah,
WordPress
you do it
blog
separately actually. Like for this, we're really talking like static size, but like, you could put a Calendly widget. Like I would give my Calendly embed code and I could put that, for example, I would book appointments. So you can connect things. You can also put things in subfolders. So I could install WordPress in /blog, for example, and then run my blog from WordPress like the way I know it. And then my main site can be vibe coded and like my marketing pages and all of that, which gives you the best of both worlds. If you want to go even more complicated, you can do a headless CMS. So you could have a WordPress installed somewhere on the internet that you connect to, and then the front end of the site pulls the content from the WordPress site, but you can still vibe code your blog, basically. So a lot of ways to do things.
Like when we were selling courses, we used to create these really super long sales pages. Like, is this a good use case for that type of content?
Definitely. It's the best use case. I remember about 2-3 weeks to do a big sales page at best.
How long do you think it would take to do the same length of sales page now?
Once you go really into the details and you want to really refine, etc., it would still take me a few days, but probably like 3.5 days of work time would replace 3 weeks of building, more or less, I would say. It depends.
You're cutting 75% of the time off.
Yeah, it really depends on what is your biggest bottleneck. Also, like a lot of the work was like finding the testimonials and brainstorming, but like this workflow of like working on Canvas to plan, like I really like that. Like the Canvas with Gemini 2.5 Pro is a fucking game changer. It's so good. Like you can just plan all your stuff and then you just chat. You can just throw the stuff that goes through your head. It's like a brainstorming session. And if you use something like Mac Whisper with it, you just press a button, you talk, and it just kind of like rearranges everything in the right place, etc. You come out, everything is structured, and it's perfect to reuse somewhere else in another chatbot, in another tool, and so on. So doing that and then just build vibe coding is great.
Just thinking about what you would pay a professional designer to redo this website. So I had a quick look around. In the US, this is where, prices are obviously a little bit higher. At a bare minimum, you're paying $3,000 for a small business site. And it looks nowhere near as good as what we have here in the example, right? It's a very basic, like someone else is building it on Wix for you better. And then if you go for something actually sleek and modern that looks really good, 5 to 10K upfront. Plus, this is what really surprised me, 3 to 5K per year in maintenance, and is
for a small business
and updates and things like that. Yeah, like they really charge a lot. I think that's where many of these web designers are really making most of their money, because it's updating the sites costs very little and they take care of it. But it's just like having someone on there to deal with stuff if there's a problem. You're kind of paying for a little bit of comfort and reliability there.
Yeah, look, if this site breaks, you're going to have to go fix it yourself. AI is not at the point. There are new tools now, asynchronous, right, where you can connect your GitHub and you say, hey, there's a bug on my website, just audit the code base and fix it for me. There's one that came from Google that's free called jules.google.com. So you can connect your GitHub here. I could connect my site, let's say. I'm doing it in a separate pop-up here. So you give it access to GitHub, and then you can just give it tasks. You can be like, hey, my site is broken, fix this. And then it goes asynchronous. And then you just connect to your repository. So like you see, we have our podcast here. I select the branch. It will just go and do the fix. And then when it's done, it's like, I'm done. You can review what it did. And you can click OK. It will deploy to GitHub. And Vercel is going to deploy it directly on the site. So we're almost at the point where you can literally submit tickets for your own website. And AI is going to go and fix it without you having to stare at your screen. You can do it from your phone, you know? Yeah, soon that kind of hand-holding of professional web designers will not be needed anymore because that will be done by AI.
And I think another interesting parallel for anyone who is still a bit put off by some of the code and the scariness of this is if you look at what WordPress websites were, 17 years ago, I remember back in like 2008, like there's a lot of uploading stuff and editing code, and it was equally sort of scary and challenging. But over the years, all these hosting companies and tool companies added simplicity to it and made it so that you didn't need to even look at the code now to have a nice looking WordPress site. And I think we will get there quite soon with this because there's such a value arbitrage to be had in achieving that. Like everybody will use this to build websites a little bit easier.
There's literally so much money being poured at solving coding right now. If you combine all the companies, we're talking hundreds of billions, maybe thousands of billions. I don't know. Is that trillions, thousands of billions?
Yeah. You said before in this podcast, code is the highest value per word content that can be created with AI. So it makes sense that all of these AI companies and big tech companies are just pouring money into to doing that. They have stand to save billions in hiring costs and just expanded capabilities more than anything, really.
Compared to where we were 1 year ago, it's already insane. It's like the fact that you can do this. It's again, we're on a podcast. We have to go fast. It's boring to watch me fix every image, etc. But the fact that I've been presenting and talking, and in 1 hour we went from essentially an idea to something like this where you can just replace the images, tweak a little bit some stuff like, this copy is a bit too light, the text, etc. is incredible. Okay, there's some bugs, etc. But come on, remember how long it took to build a test site. This is a new world.
Last question for you then. Where do you see this going in the next 6 to 12 months?
It's interesting because, okay, you can build websites, but what if AI can do it in one click? Why can't it build the website you need directly in the app, right? Gemini can do that in the canvas, etc. Are you asking me where websites are going or where this vibe coding stuff is going?
Where vibe coding specifically or making websites is going using this tech?
Websites will be the place you go to buy something from people. Like, that's what you do. Like, you kind of learn about them on LinkedIn, on Instagram, whatever. You click on the link in their bio or on the link in AI mode in Google, apparently, and then you just buy the thing, right? So the websites don't need to be so big anymore. That's also one reason why I like this build, because this is not so good for a blog, but blogs are gone for me at this point. Like, AI mode will be default search in 2 or 3 years.
Sooner than that, 6 months, yeah.
Nah, maybe not, because Google is such a staple in people's workflows. I think they'll be afraid. But the point is, you don't need a big site. You just need a site to sell your shit. And then your content is going to live on social media anyway. So like building sites that way will make total sense. But I think that the big companies are going to eat it up. So now there's like 1 million little companies, Lovable, V0, there is Bold.new, there is like a ton of them. But you can see that Google is literally coming in and giving you a free tool that can do it. Like we did no API. You don't pay for the API costs as well for what we've done, right? Like this was fully free using Google's best models. Yeah, it's all going to be free, but the traffic to website is going to go down. That's how I see it. And you're going to build more and more complex apps. So for example, right now, it's not very easy to integrate a database. So if you want people to be able to log into the website, not super easy. But they actually announced that in a few weeks, they will actually integrate Firebase into this, which has the database, etc. So let's say for these private trainer guys, we can build a backend for it where, they put their schedule and people can book the class. They have an account, they can deal with their billing there, etc. We are a few months away from essentially building them an entire business backend with just words. And That means a lot of opportunities because a lot of businesses will want it, but will not have the energy or time to actually learn how to do it properly. It's still a skill, as you saw. It would still take you practice to do what I did on this podcast. That's the opportunity for me. That's the arbitrage. It's learning how to use these tools, charge good money, and then just have AI do most of the work.
So are Wix or Square or any of these Squarespace? No, are they? Do you not think they're going to implement this tech, and because they already have the distribution, the user base, they will be able?
Yeah,
to
but they're
kind
gonna
of
get
capture
crushed
that.
on price. Like, how do they make money when this is free? Like, Google's giving it away for free. There's free hosting. There's free everything. You saw we didn't spend a dime on today's podcast. I think, yeah, there will be like the dummies that will just buy this, and then people will basically start learning this or leverage this for arbitrage. And like, I'll charge you your week subscription, spend an afternoon on this, and take your $150 a month for something that literally costs me nothing anymore. And if you want changes, I'll charge you more because Wix doesn't do changes for you. So again, arbitrage opportunity.
Pretty mind-blowing stuff, this, honestly. I feel like we're just at the forefront of this big tidal wave of change that's going to happen with websites after this.
For example, these forms, like this is Typeform, right? Like how much is Typeform as well? We didn't do the pop-up. Typeform per month to get forms like this with only 100 responses included is 25 euros. So we're talking like over $300 of value per year, a little bit less, to actually just do this little form that we did here, right? And okay, it's not perfect, like it doesn't go to the next step, but it's literally one prompt away for it to do this. So you can replace a lot of expensive tools like Opt-in Monster, like Typeform, etc. And that's
do you think websites are then just going to build all of their own like opt-in tools, form tools, like all of this from now on? Like what is the reason to purchase Typeform now?
Or you will just have a kid in his dorm making a $5 per month alternative in like an afternoon.
So essentially they all become commoditized.
Yeah, the way I see it is like there will be MCPs with a lot of open source stuff that people have built, like GitHub stuff that will be hosted there. And your AI is just going to shop into that free library of stuff, grab the code that will be reviewed by humans and just put it on your website. And that's just going to disrupt the market like crazy. Everything will be free, basically.
And if you want to stay up to date with all the latest developments in AI web design, AI agents, and everything else related to AI, then make sure to subscribe because we'll be covering a lot more of this stuff in future on this podcast. And thank you to everyone who watched the previous episode where we demonstrated a number of AI agents and how you could make money with those. We said that if we got to 10,000 views on YouTube on that one, we would make another podcast showing you how to build the back-end stuff with that in N8N. So it did reach 10,000. So we will be coming out with that podcast very, very soon. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss another episode. But we'll be back in a week or two with the next one. So we'll see you then.